Shalom Avarim, James Trim here. Today I want to talk to you about that time that Yeshua set up a Nazarene Sanhedrin. But before we get going, I need to ask you to please donate to support these videos. You can do that by clicking on the donate link in the video description. We definitely need your support today. Today particularly, our August electric bill has hit the account. August is the hottest month in Texas. For those that don't know, my wife is chronically ill. She suffers chronic pain. She's disabled. We simply cannot just turn down the AC. That added fatigue, that added stress upon her causes her to have seizures and such. So the bill has hit our account, and we are still right this minute $323 short in covering that. It's pending in our account in covering it tonight. So if you can possibly donate today, we would appreciate it. And if you can donate by PayPal or Zelle today, because we need those funds today to cover that bill. But you can also donate by GoFundMe. Just the GoFundMe takes a couple of days to get to us. You can donate by PayPal by sending donations by PayPal to donations at wnae.org, and by donating on through the donate link, you can donate either by PayPal, Zelle, or GoFundMe. Also, don't forget to like our videos. Click the notification bell so you'll get notified when new videos come out. Obviously, subscribe to the channel. And let us know what you think in the comments, and participate in the discussions in the comments, and share our videos on social media and in email with your friends and in appropriate social groups. Okay, so we recently did a video on what is the oral Torah, and in that video we addressed the passage in Deuteronomy chapter 17 verses 8 through 12 that deals with the creation of Torah courts. In fact, it starts out in Deuteronomy 16:18. It says, "Judges and officers shall you make in all your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gave you, tribe by tribe, and they shall judge the people with a righteous judgment." And then in the next chapter, starting in verse 8, it says, "If there arise a matter too hard for you in judgment, between blood and blood, between plea and plea, between stroke and stroke, even matters of controversy within your gates, then shall you arise and go you up unto the place which Yahweh your Elohim shall choose. And you shall come unto the Kohanim, the Leviim, the Levites, the priests and the Levites, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and you shall inquire, and they shall declare unto you the sentence of judgment. And you shall do according to the tenor of the sentence which they shall deliver unto you from that place which Yahweh shall choose, and you shall observe to do according to all that they shall teach you. According to the Torah," this is what literally the Hebrew says in verse 11, "according to the Torah that they shall teach you, and according to the judgment which they shall tell you, you shall do. You shall not turn aside from the sentence that which they shall declare unto you to the right nor to the left. And the man that does presumptuously in not hearkening unto the Kohen that stands to minister there before Yahweh your Elohim, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and you shall exterminate the evil from Yisrael." Okay, this is saying that if there's a matter that's not covered in Torah, that comes up that has to be determined in the community, some issue comes up, then the court, the Torah court that you've established, and when did you establish it? Well, you established it. It was already established in chapter 16, verse 18. So that court that was already established then has the power, according to the Torah, to make determinations about issues that weren't directly covered in Torah, that some decision had to be made about. For example, if you have two Torah commands and you can't keep both of them, which one do you keep? If someone made a vow that honoring that vow would dishonor their parents, do they follow the Torah command to honor the vow, or do they follow the Torah command to honor their parents? Situations like that. All kinds of other legal situations would come up. For example, the Torah says that in certain circumstances, if something is stolen and the thief is found, under certain circumstances, he has to pay a double portion or even more, punitive damage in addition to just the value of the item. And the Torah also talks about guardians of property, custodians, a shomer of property, a guardian of property, someone that's a custodian of property that they don't own, either because they've rented it or they borrowed it or they were asked to take care of it. For whatever reason, they're a guardian of property that doesn't belong to them. So what happens if the property is stolen from a custodian and the thief is found? Who gets the punitive damages? Who gets the double portion, the added penalty? Is it the person that was the victim of the theft or the person that owned the property? And what happens if the person that was the victim of the theft has, before the thief was found, made the person whole? In other words, went to the owner and said, look, I was borrowing your car, it was stolen, I want to make good, here's the value of your car. So all these different issues come up in a Torah situation when you're actually observing Torah as a community. And the Torah says in this passage of Deuteronomy 17:8 through 12, that when these situations come up, the judges that shall be in those days hear the case, and their ruling then becomes, according to verse 11, Torah. Okay, so that means their ruling, it says, according to the Torah which they shall teach you. So that ruling that they make becomes Torah, like a Supreme Court precedence in the United States. It becomes effectively law now, and so in the U.S. case, in the case of Torah, it actually becomes Torah. It becomes part of the Torah, but it's not part of the written Torah. It's part of the oral Torah, and it needs to be part of the oral Torah so that when the same situation comes up later, a consistent decision is made, and we know what to do when that situation comes up forevermore. By the way, that phrase, according to the Torah, verse 11, in the Hebrew actually has the word peh, which is the word for mouth or oral in it. So this is actually the source for the term from which we get oral Torah. Okay, we talked about that in the last, in the recent video, the last video, which was on what is oral Torah. So now I want to address an event that takes place in the Gospel of Matthew. It's actually a pair of events that go together, but the first event is in Matthew chapter 16, verses 15 through 19. Here it says, and Yeshua said to them, talking to his Talmudim, and you, who say you that I am? He's actually here specifically talking to Kepha, but his Talmudim are present. Then answered Shimon Kepha, saying, you are Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim. And Yeshua said to him, happy are you, Shimon ben Yonah, for this was not revealed to flesh and blood, but to you when it was revealed to you by my Father which is in heaven. And I tell you, verse 18, I tell you that you are Kepha, and upon this rock I will build my assembly. The gates of Takti will not prevail against you. Now, I'm reading from my English translation of the Deutele Hebrew version of Matthew. We've done previous videos on the Deutele Hebrew version of Matthew. So it says, when I tell you that you are Kepha, and upon this rock I will build my assembly, that assembly here is not the church. Okay? I know in the KJV it has church there. Now we've done a video, I believe, in the past on this word church. There is no word in the Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek in the ancient languages of the New Testament, the books of the New Testament, that means church. Because the English word church, if you look it up in an English dictionary, always refers to a group of Christians. Whether it is referring to Christianity as a whole, or a local congregation, or a denomination, it's always applicable to a group of Christians. But the words that appear in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek in the ancient scriptures don't specify Christians at all. It's just a word that means assembly. And in fact, in the book of Acts, the same word, the Greek word, for example, ecclesia, is used in the book of Acts to refer to a group of Artemis worshipers, as an ecclesia, an assembly. That's all the word means. We've done, like I said, a previous video on that, so I don't want to get too far sidetracked on that. But we're going to find out what this assembly is that is being discussed here. It's not what Christianity has, by and large, propagated in their interpretation of the passage. From a Jewish perspective, it's actually something different when we actually analyze this text. Then it says that you are Kepha, and upon this rock I will build my assembly. And then it says, and the gates of Takti. Takti is the Hebrew word that appears there in Deutele. It's translated hell in the KJV, but Takti is a little more specific than that. It is the lowest parts of hell. Okay, it is actually a term that is used to refer to the area where the fallen angels of Genesis chapter 6 ended up, where so it's a very the lowest part of Sheol, the lowest parts of the underworld or hell. So I did a video in the past about Yeshua giving the Nephilim notice on Mount Hermon, and that video kind of delves into that aspect of this passage a whole lot more. It's very, very key. But I want to move on to verse 19. And to you will I give the keys of the kingdom of heaven. We are going to do another video soon about this phrase, keys of the kingdom of heaven. It plays a very, pardon the expression, key role in all of this, but it is a subject that is protracted enough that I can't cover in this video. We will cover it in another video soon. Okay, what the keys of the kingdom of heaven really are. And it says, and whatever you prohibit on earth shall be prohibited in heaven, or whatever you bind on earth, it says in most translations, shall be bound in heaven, and whether you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. I translate it, whatever you prohibit on earth, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. So the terminology here is actually a Hebrew idiom that is used, binding and loosing. It's asur or mutar, which means to bind or loose. These terms are used idiomatically in the rabbinic literature to describe prohibiting or forbidding activities by this halakhic court that we discussed, by the judges. Okay, so let's see a little bit more about this assembly, which has this power to bind and loose in Matthew chapter 18. So in Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, it says, if your brother sins against you, go and reprove him between you and him alone, and he will hear you. And if he will hear you, you have won your brother. But if he will not hear you, take to yourself one witness or two, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. That's actually quoting a passage from the Tanakh, which we'll look at here in a minute. Verse 17, and if he will not hear them, speak to him in the assembly. The KJV has church, but it's the assembly, and is the correct translation. It's just the word assembly, and I will show you as we continue. It will become clear it's the same assembly that was discussed in verse 16. Okay? So, if he will not hear them, speak to him in the assembly, but if he neglects to hear them in the assembly, let him be to you as a goy or a Gentile and a transgressor. Verse 18, truly I tell you, all that you will prohibit on earth has been prohibited in heaven. Also, all that you will permit on earth has been permitted in heaven. Again, in the KJV, it has bind and loose. This is the same Hebrew idiom that we just discussed that is used in reference to the Torah court that makes the determinations that we mentioned in Deuteronomy above. Okay? Again, verse 19, again I tell you, if two of you might be worthy on earth as touching a thing that they will ask, it will be for them of my Father which is in heaven. Verse 20, for in every place where 2 or 3 will assemble in my name, there am I in the midst of them. This does not mean that if 2 people pray that God will give them a Cadillac, that God will give them a Cadillac. That is not what it means. Okay? What it means in context here, where it says 2 or 3 will assemble in my name, is it is referring to, back to verse 16, 2 or 3 witnesses. These 2 or 3 witnesses testify before the Torah court. And this is referring back to Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 15, which is referring back to the Torah court of Deuteronomy 17 and earlier Deuteronomy 16. Starting in verse 15, it says, one witness shall not rise up against a man for iniquity or for any sin, and any sin that he sins. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses shall a matter be established. That was the passage being quoted in Matthew chapter 18. Okay? If an unrighteous witnesses rise up against any man to bear perverted witness against him, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before Yahweh, the Kohanim and the judges that shall be in those days. And the judges shall inquire diligently, and behold, if the witness be a false witness, and has testified falsely against his brother. So, in other words, these 2 witnesses that Yeshua refers to in Matthew chapter 18 are the witnesses that testify to the Torah court that's described in the book of Deuteronomy, the judges that shall be in those days. And this fits because this is the same assembly then that has the power to bind and loose, or to prohibit and permit. It's the assembly whose rulings become Torah. They become oral Torah, Torah of the mouth in Deuteronomy 17. So these are the same judges that shall be in those days that we see in Deuteronomy 19:17 and in Deuteronomy chapter 17. So this assembly then is essentially a Nazarene Sanhedrin that Yeshua has just established, beginning with his emissaries. Now in Luke chapter 10, he appoints 70, or depending on the ancient manuscript, 72. He appoints 70 or 72 elders, which fits exactly with the number of elders on serving on a Sanhedrin, or the judges on the Sanhedrin, which was 70 members plus 1 or 2, originally 2, and later 1, 2 during the period of the Zugot, and then after that just one. Okay, so the two leaders of the Sanhedrin, at least of the Sanhedrin, were the Nasi and the Av Beit Din. So when Kepha was given the keys, the Av Beit Din is said to hold the keys because he controls who comes and goes and who has the floor. He's sort of a vice president and sergeant of arms wrapped into one. The Nasi, or president, presides over the meeting. This is what we see happening in Acts chapter 15, where we have this Nazarene council meeting in Jerusalem to settle a matter of halakha, a matter of Jewish law that has come up as to whether Gentiles need to be circumcised in order to be saved. And I think we've done a video in the past. If we haven't, I'll look back and we'll do a video in the future on that Acts 15 council and what the real meaning and ramifications of what they were considering and what was said there actually mean. I don't want to go into that right now. That's too far off the topic. What I am covering today is simply that Yeshua established his own Nazarene Sanhedrin and gave them what we call the halakhic authority, the authority to bind and loose, the authority to act as the assembly described in the Torah in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 8 through 12, who in verse 11, their rulings are described as Torah, or literally in the Hebrew is oral Torah, and that their rulings would bind or prohibit, bind or loose, that is, prohibit or permit activities relative to Torah. As a side note, this Nazarene Sanhedrin apparently survived into the 4th century, and would have been abolished, if you will, in the 4th century, at the same time that the Rabbinic Sanhedrin, led by Hillel II, was abolished by Roman law. So this Nazarene Sanhedrin would have lasted to and continued on until the time that the Rabbinic Sanhedrin was folded as well. So we'll talk perhaps more about the ramifications of this in the future, but Yeshua did establish his own Sanhedrin with 70 elders, with Kepha as Av Beit Din, with James the Just, Yaakov Hadzadik as Nasi. That Sanhedrin did meet in Acts chapter 15 and make halakha, and probably met on a number of other occasions dealing with issues of halakha that arose in the community, and that is probably the origin of much of the halachot that we read in the writings of the emissaries. Okay, before we go, I just want to remind everybody one more time, please donate to support these videos. And we need your help definitely today if you possibly can. We appreciate all that you guys do out there, and we love you so much. Just please click on the donate link if you can donate. I realize there are some who cannot, but if you can, we just definitely need your help. You can do that by clicking on the donate link or sending donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. By clicking on the link, you can donate by PayPal, Zelle, or GoFundMe. Don't forget to like our video, subscribe to our channel, click that notification bell so you get notified when new videos come out. Let us know what you think in the comments and participate in the discussions in the comments, and share these videos with your friends on social media, on your Facebook page, in relevant Facebook groups, whatever social media which you participate in, or by email. Just email it to your friends and so on. Until next time, everybody, Shalom.